Hey guys, this is the story of Don Fury Studio. Hope you like it. 1990 was really a fantastic year for the studio. Besides all the great bands coming over from the ABC No Rio scene, we had a couple projects come in from California. FARSIDE came out to do an EP for the Crisis label, which was a label that Walter Schreifel started with Revelation. The other project from California was the Inside Out EP, No Spiritual Surrender. Not that many people know that I mixed that record because there's no credit inside the record. And I think Jordan and Revelation are going to fix that pretty soon. That was Zach de la Rocha's band and Victor Cara's band before Zach was in Rage Against the Machine. And it's a really fantastic EP. I would get to work with Vic later on doing LPs for both Shelter and 108. Shelter came in to do the EP No Compromise. Ray had formed Shelter in 1989, and then he formed Equal Vision Records to put out Shelter. And that was a pretty good situation for the studio because I did a lot of very cool records with Shelter and quite a few releases with Equal Vision as time went by. The No Compromise EP was fun because I got to work with Shelter and Ray. And also Sam Siegler was drumming on the record and Porcell was playing guitar. So a fun record to work on. We did 4 really cool records for Revelation in 1990. Judge came in to do the After the Storm EP with Forget This Time, The Storm 2, and When the Levee Breaks on the record. And there's a really cool harmonica solo in When the Levee Breaks. I'm pretty sure that's Mike Judge. And on The Storm 2, you hear something at the beginning of it, which sounds a little bit like a motorcycle. What that actually is it's Mike Judge's Harley Davidson pulled up onto the sidewalk right outside the studio hatches, and we stuck a mic about 6 inches from the tailpipe, and Mike just started gunning it on the sidewalk. I mean, it was loud as hell. And it sounded great. It's the most amazing recording you can imagine. I think the band chickened out just a little bit about how loud we mixed it because it was fierce. We also did the last EP for Youth of Today in 1990. And that was a little awkward because Ray had already started Shelter, and he was in the mood of Shelter. So we finished the music, and Purcell and me and Ray were in the studio, and Ray was cutting vocals. And we were listening to Ray, and he sounded like he was singing Shelter songs, not Youth of Today songs. And Purcell was getting frustrated. And he was like, no, that's not going to work for Youth of Today. That's not going to work, Fury. What are we going to do? And so we asked Ray to cut it a few times. And Ray couldn't figure out where we were going. Finally, he just confronted us and was like, what do you guys want me to do? And Purcell was like, yo, Ray, just bust it, man. Just bust it out. And so Ray took the ball and ran with it. And the next take, the studio at Spring Street was only about 15 feet across. And Ray had Vans on or something like that. Literally, Ray took the mic and started running up and down the walls like it was a skateboard park. And while he sang the vocals, and I'm telling you, on the Disengage EP, 90% of those vocals are Ray literally running off and bouncing off the walls of Don Fury Studio in 1990. It was epic. There are 2 other EPs that we made in 1990 that are quintessential and iconic. The Burn EP was just a masterpiece, in my personal opinion. And I think they pushed out the boundaries of hardcore to extravagant limits and opened up new territory that would later become known as post-hardcore. The music is dark, it's cinematic, it's foreboding, and it is almost impressionistic. When I listen to a song like Godhead, sure, there's some hardcore themes in there, but it goes from one theme to another, to another, to another. It just travels. They put you in a vista. It's if you were driving a car in an urban landscape at night, this is fantastic music to listen to. The Burn EP wasn't necessarily an easy EP to set lyrics to. I mean, this wasn't just a hardcore, I'm going to scream them out and fall on the floor kind of record. So when Chaka and I got together to work on the lyrics, he literally had to invent a persona in the studio to work with the record. And I think that Chaka did a great job. He comes across as an author, a narrator, and a proselytizer. And I think all those characteristics match up really well with the EP. You can hear it a little more developed on the record The Last Great Sea from 1992. The Last Great Sea was done at Don Fury Studio, although there's no credit. I wish we could get those things fixed. Everybody in the world wanted Burn to do another record, but they couldn't get off the blocks. In 1992, they came in and did 3 songs, which are now called The Last Great Sea. And I had talked to Wreck Age Records about doing a one-off with the band, one record and done. And Wreck Age offered them a really nice deal. Then another label came in and kind of put something in front of the band and messed up the whole situation, basically. The band couldn't choose between possible deals, and it just died. I can't tell you how amazing it was to go to a Burn show. I remember going to a Burn show at the Marquee, the old Marquee on the west side, 547 West 21st Street. And it was a dance hall, right, with a balcony, right? And I was up in the balcony. And audiences didn't know when to physically react to a Burn show unless they knew the music, because the music was not, mosh thrash. So the place was freaking packed, okay? Maybe holds 800 to 1,000 people, right? And as soon as one of the songs from the EP came on, the kids knew what to do. And the whole freaking floor of the Marquee was bouncing up and down by 8 or 10 inches. Man, I thought the whole place was gonna collapse. That's how intense it was at a Burn show. The Burn EP was one of the most consequential records of the 90s. I remember watching and seeing that it was on playlists all over the world: Japan, Germany, Australia, United States, UK, for at least 5 years after the EP came out. That's how important it was and how much impact it had on the world at that time. When Walter Schreifels decided he was going to front his own band, his first attempt was Moondog, and I would consider that somewhat unfinished, although there is one example of it on the Look at All the Children Now comp by Evacuate Records, and that's the song Expression, which is not bad. You can tell Walter's halfway beyond Gorilla Biscuits in style and heading towards Quicksand. By the time Walter formed Quicksand with Sergio Vega and Tom Capone and Alan Cage, he had definitely moved on stylistically. So Quicksand came in and they did the music for the EP for Revelation Records, I guess fairly quickly. The vocals, on the other hand, were another matter. One thing was for sure, it was not going to sound like the Gorilla Biscuits, either lyrically or vocally. But I don't think Walter knew exactly where he was going yet. The music was down, and so I would get these calls, usually in the middle of the afternoon, and Walter would say, "Hey, Fury, man, I got something, man. I got to come down. You got to open up the studio." And I'd be like, "Okay, you sure?" You go, "Yeah, all right, fine, come on down." So he'd come down, I'd have the whole studio running, and he'd get up there, and he'd sing one line. And I'd be like, "You're kidding me." He goes, "That's all I got, Fury. I swear, that's all I got." And I'd be like, "All right, go. Call me later." So that's how he put the record together, and it was a very successful style for Walter. And the record in general, and Quicksand in general, is one of the most iconic bands in terms of the concept of post-hardcore, a groundbreaker. I mean, if you listen to any rock band from the late 90s, you're going to hear bits and pieces of Quicksand in there. There's no doubt. So 1990 was a blast-off at the studio for the ABC No Rio scene and the bands, for Rec Age Records, Vermiform Records, War Dance Records, Equal Vision Records, and Revelation Records, and the post-hardcore scene. It was quite a year.